Trev, let's dive into the breakdown of the Notre Dame defense and the keys to victory for the Notre Dame defense in this game. And look, it really starts with it goes beyond shutting down the run game. When Notre Dame played USC 2 years ago, my number one key was you got to stop the run. And Al Golden went into that game and had a kind of a stop the pass game type of mentality. And USC did not have a great success throwing the ball on Notre Dame that year. Caleb Williams, that's in that game, went 18 of 22, but it was a lot of short throws, 232 yards. Couldn't really get the ball down the field. You had one busted coverage completion to Jordan Addison. But outside of that, they didn't really rip them up, but they ran all over Notre Dame because Notre Dame wasn't prepared to shut down the run. And when I look at this football team, especially now that Miller Moss is out of the lineup, the biggest concern I have is their ability to run the football. The issue for USC for most of the year has been a willingness to run the football, not an ability to run the football. And I just look, I've said this a million times. I don't think Lincoln Riley's the smartest people make him out to be as a head coach, but he's not an idiot. And when you look at this game, I just don't see how he thinks, hey, let's go out there and try to throw all over the number one pass defense in the country. I can't come to grips with the fact that he's that not smart. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to throw the football. It doesn't mean that at all. But when, like last week, they tried to throw the football. Well, UCLA has the number 111 pass defense in the country. The week before, Nebraska's ranks number 66. Of course, they're going to try to throw the ball in those teams. Notre Dame ranks number one, and in a lot of different categories. And you've got still a relatively young quarterback back there. Notre Dame at times has had some vulnerabilities to the run game. But it goes beyond just that. That's part of this. But my key really comes down to you have to stop the running backs. And it's not just the run game. It starts with the run game. You've got to stop. You can't let USC run the football in this game. That's where they want to be. They want to shorten this game. Lincoln Riley has no illusions that this is where I'll give him credit. He has no illusions that this is a 40-plus point team this year. They're not that. He knows that this is about putting drives together, extending, being patient, not trying to just hit a bunch of home runs. I'm sure he'll certainly dial up plays to hit big plays and all that, and we'll get to that. But when I watched them, especially early against Penn State, they were having a lot of success with their running backs. A lot of success. Running the ball, throwing the ball. Woody Marks is their leading pass catcher on top of being a good running back. Quentin Joyner goes out and has a 75-yard run on basically a jet sweep against Penn State. Woody Marks makes a ton of big plays in that game, running and catching. And when you watch this USC offense, and this is what blows my mind that he hasn't done this more, when the running backs are the focal point of the offense, that's when they're dangerous. And in this game, they're going to have watched the Louisville game. They're going to have watched the Florida State game. They're going to have watched some of the games recently where Notre Dame allowed running backs to kind of have some success against them running and throwing. And I have to think that's going to be an early game plan for them, especially when you consider how much success they had against the Notre Dame defense 2 years ago. Now, this is a much different schematic defense with Al Golden. Al Golden back then, if you remember, ran a lot of odd fronts, and he didn't always trust his four-man front to be successful, if you remember that. This past 2 years especially, he's been much more, we're a four-down team no matter what, and they've been a lot better. So you've got to have a game plan to stop the backs from taking this game over. That's my biggest concern. If you shut them down, USC can't win this game, in my opinion. They may make some plays here and there in the pass game, and I expect them to do that. The quarterback will scramble a little bit, but they're not going to be able to put enough consistent drives together to win this game if the running backs don't have a big game, running and catching. That's the thing, is it's both with these backs. And, Woody Marks, Quentin Joyner, they're dynamic players, in my opinion. So key number one, and it is, to me, by far the biggest key, is you've got to shut down the running backs. You cannot let them take this game over as a duo. And that's the thing, is in the USC game or the Penn State game, Joyner didn't touch the ball a lot, but when he did, they were big plays. Caught a touchdown pass, had the 75-yard touchdown run. You can't let these two kids take the game over. That is without question, number one, all bolded, highlighted, numero uno key. You can't let their running backs take this game over. Stop them. USC is going to have a tough time scoring enough points to win this football game.
From that aspect, I look at it very similar to the 2022 football game. when you have in 2022, it was your mindset in the game can't be, well, we're just going to shut down Caleb Williams. When you have that good of a football player, they're going to get theirs. That's one thing that I do want to remind people of is when another team has good players, they will get theirs too. Now, Notre Dame's defense has been dominant this year, and I do believe that they will show out again on Saturday because they have yet to prove me wrong. And Notre Dame's defense right now is batting 11 for 11, if we're just being completely honest. And the way that I look at this game is very similar. You have a receiving core that has, Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane and Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson and all these guys. It's a very deep receiving room, and they're all very athletic and can make plays. But what you can't happen is if USC is able to establish any sort of consistency with their running back room. Same thing in 2022. Caleb Williams was going to get his. He was going to run around in the backfield and dance around and break out of sacks. And I was okay with letting that happen. The presumed Heisman winner at the time, letting that happen as long as Notre Dame didn't allow a 200-yard day on the ground, and they did.
Which they did.
And they did, right? So I couldn't agree with you more. Stopping the running backs in both phases, in the running game and their playmaking ability out of the backfield. I mean, you said it best. Woody Marks is their leading receiver in terms of receptions. He has 47 on the season.
I think the next closest is 40.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like he's leading by one because somebody was missing a chunk of time. That's not it. It's by I'm sorry. Zechariah Branch is 43, and he's got a lot of screen catches.
Yep.
Right. And then when you factor in Quentin Joyner, he has 11 for 76. So their two running backs between them, Trevor, have 58 catches on the season between their two running backs.
Yeah. Yeah. Credit to Lincoln Riley because he does everything that he can to get the ball into the hands of his playmakers. That's something that he's done well historically as a coach. And as long as Notre Dame's able to keep them in check, like I said, I can live with a big play to Zachariah Branch if he breaks one loose, for 25 yards down the field. But it can't be one of those games where USC's running backs are getting 9, 10, 11 yards at a time. And that's just, it's not going to bode well for the defense. So I agree. Shutting down the running backs has to be top of mind.
Key number 2 is you've got to disrupt Jaden Maeva. There's a lot of different ways this means. Obviously, the easy one is rushing the passer. Obviously, hey, look, get pressure on him. Okay, cool. We know that. Get pressure on him. If you can harass him and just get consistent pressure, it'll be the same thing that happened last year with Caleb Williams. He's going to make mistakes. Now, I actually don't think you're going to turn him over as much as you did Caleb Williams because I think what he'll end up doing is just taking more sacks. If you're getting the same kind of pressure against him that you got against USC last year, you're just going to take more sacks. Now, I think this is a better pass blocking team now than it was at this time last year. They're bigger. They're longer. They're not a great pass blocking team now. They're better than they were in September. You can still have success against them, but you've got to be able to get some level of consistent pressure. But the other part of it, Trevor, as far as disrupting him, comes down to Al Golden, what he does schematically, and make him think he's seeing one thing pre-snap and then give him something different. That's been a big reason why. And Al Golden, Marcus Freeman talked about this in the preseason. He talked about how now that they're two seasons in, this defense wasn't going to be about year 3 wasn't going to be about adding a lot of stuff. Hey, now that we guys are 3 years into the system, we can add no, it was going to be now we can start disguising things a lot more. So we're going to run what we run, but now we can show it differently. We can make people think we're doing this, and then out of that, we can do 5 or 6 different things. We're doing the same 5 or 6 different things every snap, but you never know what's coming because we can do all 5 or 6 things out of any look that we give you. And that's what he's done a great job of this past season. And that's got to continue in this game because, this is a kid who will kind of lock in on receivers. This is where I'm going with the football. And if you can give him some looks to make him lock in on the wrong route, you can then maybe jump some routes. People say, well, how does Notre Dame keep having these interceptions where quarterbacks just throw it right to a guy? Because pre-snap, they were showing one thing, and then all of a sudden, Don Schuler comes underneath the route, and you're like, where did he come from? He was playing like single high before the snap. What's he doing in the field alley? Things like that. And those are aspects that have made this defense so effective. They think a guy's blitzing, and he doesn't. They think a guy's dropping into coverage, and he blitzes. I could see a couple Jordan Clark nickel fires that just don't get seen and just blow it up. Those are going to be big things where, looks like Christian Gray is going to be dropping into cover 3 or off man, and he's coming down at the snap. Things like that where you can really get this kid thinking where he's uncomfortable, because it doesn't even just include interceptions and that breakups, Trev, but it's also about he's going to be less willing to throw the football if he's not sure what's happening post-snap. And that's when your pressure can start to get to him and you can force him incompletion. So I think disrupting him with your pressure and disrupting him with just him never being comfortable with the looks that he's getting coverage-wise are there's two keys that are just above this. Number one, shutting down the running backs, clear number one. This is a clear number two. Like, for me, just no doubt about it. If you can disrupt this kid and slow down the running backs, this could be a rout. It really could. And then it limits some of the big weapons that they have if the kid's unwilling to throw the football. I mean, and UCLA did a decent job of that. That's why they had to pull out. I mean, the go-ahead game-winning touchdown drive required them to throw a backwards pass, throw the ball down the field, because they were struggling to move the ball. And part of that was UCLA doing a nice job of giving him some stuff he wasn't expecting, and he made some mistakes with his reads, and he just wasn't comfortable throwing the football. That's why he started scrambling a little bit more, because he wasn't sure where to go. And with all due respect to UCLA, they don't do it nearly like the way Notre Dame does. That's a big key to this game.
The only other thing that I'm going to add here, Bryan, because everything that you said is spot on, and I couldn't agree with you more. The only thing that I'm going to add is when you do get a pass rush on Maeva, he is very careless with the football in the pocket. I use Joe Burrow almost as kind of like the teach tape on how to maneuver with the football when you're in the pocket. 2 hands on the ball every time. He maneuvers it away from active hands. Maeva is very out with it. I mean, he's running around. He's trying to do his best Patrick Mahomes impression. I mean, I'm telling you, if Notre Dame's defensive line or whoever's getting a pass rush on him can have active hands with the football, he will cough it up. He will. The one downside to what he does when he is able to scramble and break out of the pocket, to Brian's point, he locks onto receivers. And he will trust his guys, to his credit, to go up and make plays, and sometimes they can because they have some big-bodied receivers. They also haven't faced Notre Dame secondary before. So winning the turnover margin is going to be huge if you're able to get pressure on Jaden, because he is not going to be able to make the correct decision. But if you're a defensive lineman, if you're an edge rusher, have very, very, very active hands, because he will try to keep plays alive, and he's very careless with the football in the pocket. I mean, there was, between the Nebraska and the UCLA game, I mean, they could have had a combined 4 forced fumbles against him between those 2 games with how careless he was in the pocket. So if that's the case, that's the only other thing that I'll add to pressuring him.
Now, here's the key to that, Trev, is you have to make sure you've got good gap discipline, and you're not letting him just get into creases and run and beat you. The last 2, Trevor, kind of quick. This one is just, it's kind of like last year. Notre Dame dominated USC up the middle, and they could do nothing. They couldn't run it. They couldn't pass it. A key, and this is more of a key to the first 2 keys, a key to shutting down the running backs, a key to disrupting the quarterback, is you've got to be dominant up the middle again, whether Howard Cross plays or not. That includes the linebackers, but obviously it's Riley Mills and Donovan Heinisch. USC game was probably Riley Mills' best game last year. I mean, Caleb Williams is still probably having nightmares about this big old monster from, this, country boy monster from Illinois, just all over him the entire game. Just these big paws in his face. I have like some great pictures that Angelo took of like Riley just like there, like about to harass poor Caleb Williams. That's key. Donovan Heinisch has been playing great football since Howard Cross went out. That's got to continue. You need Gabriel Rubio to really be stout up the middle, and you need your linebackers to play smart, gap sound, good defense. That's going to be a big key. And then the fourth one is this is a simple one too, Trev. It's limit big plays. And if they're going to make big plays, make them earn it. Make Deuce Robinson out jump you and outplay you for a football. It may happen. Make Kyle Ford do that. Make make Kyron Hudson do that, which he did. He had that phenomenal catch against LSU. Make them make those types of plays. Don't give up. They throw a backwards pass and you bite up and you let them get a cheap ball down the field. Don't misfit on a run gap and allow them to cut back for a 30-yard gain because you didn't do your job. Right? Do your job. Tackle well. Be disciplined and make them earn everything they get. This is not a high octane offense. It isn't. I mean, USC hasn't scored over 30 points in a game since Rutgers. And before that, it goes all the way back to October 12th against Penn State. And so this is a team that on the season has only been over 30 points or more 4 times all year, one of them against Utah State. But they can grind you out. They can grind you down if you're not disciplined. And then they can make enough big plays to hurt you. And you've got to limit those big plays where it's because they throw a screen to Zechariah Branch and you miss a tackle at the line of scrimmage and he runs for 25 yards. You just can't let that happen. Where you turn Deuce, like the big touchdown pass Deuce Robinson had against Nebraska. He came from backside. He ran a deep over route. Nebraska turned him loose. Can't allow that to happen. If Deuce is going to beat you for a touchdown, make him earn it. Make him outplay you for a ball. Make him, do something like that. Make them work for everything, because if they do that, I don't think this team has enough to win. So stop the running backs, disrupt the quarterback. The key to that, those two things, is winning up the middle, and then finally limit big plays by tackling well and being disciplined. Make USC work. If they do that, I think it's going to be another big day for the Notre Dame defense.
The only other thing that I'm going to add there, Bryan, is Notre Dame's defense has to come in with honestly, both sides of the football. Come in and do what you've done to every opponent post September 7th all year. There's a common theme of Notre Dame opponents going into their next game and losing, and it's because they're banged up. I'm not saying go in with the mentality to go hurt people, not at all, but they're sore. Notre Dame is a very physical football team, and if there's one glaring thing that I saw last year when Notre Dame and USC played, is USC didn't want to compete with Notre Dame from a physical standpoint. Not at all, which I do think bleed into your two final points of tackle well, limit big plays, just come fast, come downhill, be aggressive, be assignment correct, because they're not – USC hasn't played a defense like this yet. They haven't. And remind them what it's like to play this type of physical football team.
Which is honestly true every week. Nobody's played a defense like Notre Dame's.
No.
Except maybe teams that Ohio State has played.
Sure.
To me, those are the two very best defenses in the country. And I don't – like Texas has got some good numbers because they've beat up on some bad teams. But Ohio State and Ohio and Notre Dame from a week – and I think Notre Dame's is clearly better than Ohio State's. But just week to week to week to week to week to week, is the top defense in the country. And when you look at the metrics, I believe Notre Dame is number 1 now, I believe, in all of the different I know that let me see here real quick. So let's go to rankings, football power index, resume, efficiencies. Let's go. So their defense right now ranks number 2 behind Texas on the ESPN football power index. And I believe that they're number 1 on the Fermo efficiency index on defense. So yes, they are. They're number 1. Texas is 2. Ohio State is 3. Texas got a very good defense. I just don't quite see it as much with them. The dominance, they've been effective, but I just don't see quite the same level of dominance. So that's obviously going to be a big one. So it's going to be those are going to be the keys.